Hi everyone! Today I'm going to walk you through a topic that is becoming central to modern business strategy, the Internet of Things, or also known as IoT. We interact with IoT every single day, often without realizing it, but on the business side it's even more powerful, helping companies gain visibility, automate operations, and make decisions based on real-time data, rather than guesswork. Over the next several minutes, we'll explore what IoT is, how it has evolved, major business applications, real examples from companies leading the space, and the risks and challenges managers need to consider. We'll also look at where IoT is heading and end with a few discussion questions that you'll be able to use in the chat. Let's get started. What exactly is IoT? IoT refers to an interconnected system of devices, from small sensors all the way to industrial machines, that collect and share data through the internet. These devices can monitor conditions, track assets, automate tasks, and even initiate decision-making without human involvement. There are four main pillars, you would say, of IoT that I would consider important to the landscape ecosystem of IoT. First, connected devices. These can be anything: smart thermostats, connected cars, manufacturing equipment, agriculture sensors, or warehouse tracking devices. You probably see them every day, whether it's your kitchen appliances or your Alexa. So what makes them smart is their ability to communicate. That's what's most important. So second, sensor technology. Sensors are how devices understand their environment. They measure temperature, vibrations, humidity, pressure, speed, location, and so many more things can be tracked using sensor technology. Think of them as the eyes and ears of the IoT system. Third, data analytics. Most important part, maybe for the business landscape. The real power of IoT comes from analyzing all of that data. It transforms simple data points into insights, predictions, or automated actions. For example, a sensor in a machine may detect vibration patterns that dictate a part is wearing out. Analytics interpret that change and predict failure before it even happens. This ultimately helps with business delays and any kind of interruptions when you think of manufacturing especially. And fourth, automation and control. Once data is analyzed, IoT systems can trigger actions and adjust inventory levels, send alerts, schedule maintenance, or route vehicles. So IoT is really a combination of sensing, communicating, analyzing, and then acting. So now let's jump into the history of IoT. So to understand IoT's impact, it's helpful to look at its evolution. Really, the term IoT, or Internet of Things, wasn't really coined until 1999. At the time, it sounded futuristic, like something out of some science fiction movie. It really was kind of the next big thing that people weren't sure what it was. And then in 2008, the number of connected devices worldwide surpassed the number of people on the planet. That was a major milestone and really showed just how fast technology was scaling and at what pace businesses were kind of, taking that on and interested in the technology. And then in the early 2010s, smart homes and wearables entered the mainstream. That's when consumers started seeing IoT firsthand. Fitbits we'd wear, those smart thermostats I talked about earlier, or all the smartwatches in the current ecosystem. And this kind of enabled the future next steps into what connected homes could look like. Then in 2016, industrial IoT exploded in manufacturing. Factories realized they could use sensors to monitor equipment, reduce downtime, and really optimize their efficiency and processes. Then in 2020 and beyond, so from 2020 till now, we've seen a rise of smart cities, connected infrastructure, intelligent transportation, automated street lighting, large-scale environmental monitoring, overall just an increase for the benefit of public safety. Fast forward to today in 2025, and as we look in the future, which I'll discuss even later on, but advances in 5G and edge computing are accelerating IoT further by allowing real-time processing at the device level. That greatly reduces latency and increases accuracy. So now we'll kind of go into, what are those benefits? Why are we even talking about IoT today? So, IoT really offers four big advantages that I looked into that businesses tend to care about. The first one, operational efficiency. Organizations can streamline workflows, reduce manual labor, automate tasks, and really optimize resources. For example, logistics companies now track where every truck is, how it is performing, and what routes are most efficient for them to be going on. And then we'll look into improved decision making. So decisions are no longer reactive. With IoT, managers get real-time visibility into operations. They get a dashboard with endless amounts of metrics. Instead of waiting for reports, they know exactly what's happening in that moment. And then predictive maintenance, which we've kind of touched on here and there, but this is one of the highest value use cases. Rather than waiting for machines to break, sensors detect small anomalies. Companies can fix problems early and reduce costly downtime. Really, IoT, when you think of manufacturing, has been able to save a lot of time and money for numerous, endless manufacturing sites. And then, customized customer experience. Think about retail. When you go to the mall and go shopping, IoT helps companies track what products customers interact with, how long they spend in certain areas, or when shelves need restocking. All of that allows for more personalized service and better customer satisfaction. So whether it's through connected camera technology that sees what's on the shelves or a weight sensor on a convenience store shelf, they're able to tell when something needs to be restocked or how customers can be helped to the best ability. And of course, IoT doesn't come anywhere without its particular challenges. So, as you could see, like any disruptive technology, IoT comes with challenges, and leaders must consider these challenges before driving this kind of technology forward. So, as many people would think, data privacy is a huge area of concern. Every connected device becomes a potential access point for hackers. As more devices are added, the attack surface grows and grows. Protecting IoT data requires strong encryption, secure firmware, and constant monitoring. Second, you need to think about integration complexities. So IoT often involves connecting devices from different manufacturers, each with their own software protocols. Getting everything to communicate smoothly is one of the biggest managerial and technical challenges. When you kind of work with a lot of different vendors and you need them all to talk to each other, there's a lot of barriers to making sure that's a smooth integration. And third, scalability and complexity. So as IoT expands, businesses suddenly have thousands or millions of data points coming in every single second. That can strain networks. It can strain cloud systems and, of course, analytical tools when they're creating, what those insights really are. So companies really need to prepare for their infrastructure to scale and what that would look like, and that comes with a lot of preparation and planning, and if that's not done, that could definitely be a challenge for an organization. So how is IoT, impacting industries? So as we're part of this MBA program, when we're looking into different industries and we say IoT, what does that mean? So IoT just isn't a tech trend. It's really reshaping those really traditional industries that historically relied on manual processes. So here I wanted to highlight a few different industries that to me seem not very innovative. So when you think of insurance, it's pretty typical process that every insurance company goes through, and it's not as innovative as you could imagine. And same with agriculture, the same way of doing things, etc. Supply chain management has improved over the years, but I kind of chose these because I thought they'd be a good innovative industries to touch on. So for insurance, IoT allows insurance companies to use real-time data to assess risks more accurately. So for example, when you think telematic devices in vehicles, measuring driver behavior, so those progressive snapshot. Instead of one-size-fits-all premiums, insurers can now be based on your actual usage. So this ultimately does help the consumer. While maybe if you're not a great driver, this isn't as helpful as it could be, but overall, insurance is kind of has this wide variety of potential IoT use cases, whether it's property insurance and you're putting water sensors in homes to help with understanding what's the potential risk and when you use IoT technology, it ultimately lowers the risk, which will ultimately help your premiums. So overall, insurance benefits all the way around. It's not just the business side, but it's also helping the public and policyholders. And then when we think supply chain, IoT increases transparency. Companies know where shipments are, whether they're delayed, whether temperature sensitive cargo has been exposed to heat, and how efficiently inventory is moving. So if you order something that needs to be cold and it's affected by the heat, so if you're ordering a couple pounds of meat, or you're a distributor and you have all of these products that need to be kept at a certain temperature, and then that changes, the sensor will be able to read that, and ultimately it'll help long term when you're selling, helps with recalls and etc. Also just general asset tracking, so if something's on a large cargo and it gets lost, you're able to find it with the basic asset tracking sensor. And then agriculture. This one is the most exciting areas, I think, because it's such a very traditional industry where a lot of things maintain the same. But this is a really cool area I enjoyed looking into. So IoT enables precision farming, automated irrigation, soil monitoring, livestock tracking, and climate control. Farmers use data to make better planting decisions and reduce waste overall. So they're able to use technology to not just automate day-to-day work, but they're also able to take those insights and how they can produce more crops every year, or how they can increase quality, or what they can do best every year, and use kind of predictive models to do that. So now we're going to dive deeper into the IoT agricultural market. I kind of really got into this one, so I wanted to touch on how we could learn a little bit more. So as we zoom in on agriculture, because it highlights the scale and growth potential of IoT, the current market is valued at $28.65 billion, and by 2030 is projected to reach $54.38 billion, almost doubling. The growth rate over the next 5 years is expected to be 10.5%, which is significant for such a mature industry. And 56% of the revenue comes from hardware, which I think is very interesting because not many people always think hardware when they think IoT, but the devices, the actual physical devices, are 56% of the market. So agriculture is a great example of why IoT matters, and even industries that have been around for centuries are being transformed by real-time data. These are a few companies I want to touch on. Samsara is really large in the IoT space, specifically the smart fleet management. It's kind of the future. Telematics, monitoring fuel consumption, driver safety. It allows managers to optimize routing and reduce fuel costs, overall helping the environment. IBM is a great example too. They use IoT sensors for predictive maintenance, analyze equipment performance in manufacturing plants and industrial environments. And then Zebra was kind of a cool one I wanted to add in. But basically what they do is they're an IoT retail and warehousing company. So their sensors track inventory location, timing for replenishment, helping companies reduce stockouts and maintain accurate inventory levels. So now we'll go into the future of IoT. Digital twins. These are virtual replicas of physical systems. Similar to when you walk through a video on Zillow, that's an example of simulating a scenario. And then smart homes. Automation will extend beyond simple tasks like lighting. Homes will anticipate behaviors, detect patterns, and they'll be able to adjust environments automatically. And then for smart cities, IoT will enhance public transportation and things like emergency services. Sensors will help cities become more sustainable, efficient, and ultimately safer. And then telematics for autonomous vehicles. This is huge. So think Waymo. Connected cars, they'll communicate with infrastructure, cloud platforms, and it'll ultimately revolutionize traffic safety, traffic flows into the office, and logistics. And then some of my takeaways. Just to wrap up, IoT isn't just a technology. I believe it's a strategic enabler that can transform industries. And for future managers like ourselves that are an MBA program, understanding IoT really gives us that competitive edge. And that's why I think it's so important to be aware of how IoT data-driven insights can help us move forward. And then these are my discussion questions. I look forward to discussing with you further. Thank you very much for listening. Can't wait to talk about my presentation with you.